I swear I don't want to gloat that much, but I did tell you this thing was coming, didn't I? I've gotten into so many discussions on Twitter, on Reddit, on anywhere where people have discussions about the possibility of a smaller Nintendo Switch. It always made sense to me in a way that I guess a lot of people disagreed. And guess who has the last laugh? Look, I don't get to be right very often, so let me have this one moment, okay? Moving on. Today, Nintendo announced the upcoming Nintendo Switch Lite. It's going to come out on September the 20th, and it's going to cost $200 American. It's going to have a 5.5-inch screen as opposed to the 6.2-inch that the current Nintendo Switch sports. Though it's going to have the same 720 resolution, so at least in theory, the image on the Nintendo Switch Lite is going to look crisper because the pixels are going to be more packed in together. It's going to be a little bit smaller, not that much. From the pictures I've seen on the internet, it's going to be slightly bigger than a PS Vita. So more portable, but not exactly pocketable. Still, if you're into portability like I am, probably an interesting proposition to have a more portable Nintendo Switch, right? Now, of course, it's not all good news. The Nintendo Switch Lite will have no rumble, no IR sensor, and what's perhaps the deal breaker for a lot of people, no docking whatsoever. You're not going to be able to connect this thing to a TV. It's strictly a portable Nintendo Switch, just a handheld, nothing more. And as you can tell from the announcement video, the Nintendo Switch Lite is not going to have detachable JoyCons. It's going to be one single unit, which obviously cuts costs, and it makes the device sturdier because less moving parts. But the downside of that is that some games that require the JoyCons specifically will not work. Games like Super Mario Party, 1-2 Switch, if anybody cares about that, Just Dance, and Labo. None of those are going to work on the Nintendo Switch out of the box. Of course, you can buy separate Joy-Cons and pair them to the device, and that's where I think the messaging here gets a little muddled. I understand the idea, the appeal of a cheaper Nintendo Switch that is strictly a portable handheld device. We have new Pokemon titles coming out, we have Animal Crossing, we have all these games that kids enjoy, and having a cheaper, more portable, sturdier Nintendo Switch is probably going to go gangbusters with this crowd, especially when these games drop. Again, this is $100 cheaper than the regular Switch, so that's $100 that could go towards games, right? So the idea here would be you can pick up a regular Switch or a more portable Switch for those who really only care about portability, and say 2 or maybe 3 games. It's a decent price point. I would have liked something a little bit less, obviously, but $200 is a decent price. But again, the messaging thing. I understand the idea. This is supposed to be a portable, cheaper Switch to get some people that were on the fence about the platform to finally jump in and buy it, and perhaps buy a whole bunch of software for it. It makes a lot of sense. So I understand that in this design philosophy, docking it to a TV, though there's probably no technical reason why it can't be done on the Nintendo Switch Lite, Nintendo probably didn't want to confuse people. I imagine that they thought that it's much easier to sell this thing if they push the idea that this is just a portable, make it simple. If you want to connect to the TV, if you want to play Labo or anything like that, this is the one you get. The Switch Lite is just for portability. I get that. But in that case, why allow you to pair other controllers or Joy-Con? Because honestly, this thing doesn't even have a kickstand, and the screen on the Nintendo Switch, though I myself have played multiplayer in tabletop mode, detaching the Joy-Cons and playing with people, I've done that myself, the screen is pretty small as is. And to do that kind of gaming experience on an even smaller screen, on a device that doesn't stand up on its own, wouldn't it have made a lot more sense to not allow controllers to be paired to this thing? If the whole idea is we can't confuse people, we don't want to make this thing be dockable and then people are wondering which Switch they should buy. This one is for people who know for a fact they just want portability and they want to save a little bit. To me, it seems like it's a conflicting message that this thing doesn't stand up on its own, there's no kickstand, you can't connect to the TV, but you can pair Joy-Cons to it. Like, who's seriously going to be playing multiplayer on that thing, honestly? And to be perfectly honest with you, and perhaps I'm biased, let me know if you disagree, but the whole idea of detachable Joy-Cons is something that it's kind of like 3D on the 3DS. It's an interesting gimmick that the console's named after, but I don't find myself using it that much. Perhaps, again, I'm wrong. Let me know if your experience has been different. But I don't do that often. I've done it a couple of times, but it's really just a novelty. Like, what really sells the Switch, in my opinion, isn't so much that you can switch and put it on the TV and then take it with you and detach the Joy-Cons. And to me, at least, what sells the Switch isn't the gimmicks, it's the quality first-party titles. And this goes back to my endless discussions with people when I was always saying, no, it makes perfect sense for Nintendo to put out a smaller, more affordable Nintendo Switch that doesn't detach the Joy-Cons, that doesn't connect to the TV. I've always thought this made a lot of sense, but people said, yeah, but if it did that, it effectively wouldn't switch. Therefore, the name, the brand wouldn't even make sense for that console anymore. Yeah, but at the same time, it wouldn't be the first time Nintendo pulled something like that off. I mean, remember the 3DS? 3D was such an important part of the experience, or so Nintendo thought, that the system was literally named after that gimmick. And then a few years later, what did they realize? People weren't using it that much. People aren't buying 3DSs to see 3D video games. They're buying 3DSs because they can use it to play Mario, Pokemon, Zelda, and so on and so forth. I would be willing to bet money that one of the reasons, at least one of the reasons, why Nintendo decided to go ahead with the idea of the Switch Lite is because they found out through their own surveys or whatever, or maybe they have a way to pull data right from the system, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that what happened is, just like with the 3DS, they went like, you know, to play with the Joy-Cons, to play in tabletop mode, like that's not something they're doing as much as we thought they would. So let's offer them the option to do away with that and save a little bit and make it more portable. Another thing you'll probably notice from the announcement video is that the left-hand side, where the left Joy-Con would be, instead of that weird, not quite a D-pad with, but you know what I'm talking about, like this thing, instead of this, it's going to have an actual D-pad, which is something that Switch owners have asked for quite a while. There's even third-party Joy-Cons that give you that functionality, an actual D-pad. That weird situation with the left Joy-Con was really a byproduct of the need for the Joy-Con to be its own separate controller, so it wouldn't work so well if that was a D-pad. And that's the thing, they sacrificed something that we're going to use all the time, which is a D-pad, for a feature that you're not going to use all the time, which is detaching the Joy-Cons to play, I don't know, Mario Kart with your friend. So to me, it makes a lot of sense that they're going back to a more traditional control scheme with a D-pad on the Switch Lite. Now the big question, is the Switch Lite worth it? Obviously take this with a grain of salt. I haven't bought one yet, but if you already have a Switch, the Switch Lite is just flat out not for you. What it has going for it is the lower price point, but again, if you already have one, that's moot. It's more portable, but not that much more portable. Like I said, it's like slightly bigger than a Vita from what I could tell from the pictures and the videos. So it's, you know, not that much smaller. You're still not going to be sticking that in your pocket. The D-pad is nice, I'll give you that, but if you've played with the Switch the way it is for the last 2 years, you are probably doing just fine without a D-pad, right? Not being able to dock this thing is quite upsetting. I will say this. If it did have that feature, that'd be a no-brainer for me. I would legit sell my Switch and buy a Switch Lite when it comes out, because then I'd have the best of both worlds. I'd be able to have something that's more portable and still connect to the TV, which is, by the way, a feature that took me forever to actually take advantage of. When I first bought my Switch, the dock was sitting in my storage room for like 8 months, I think, because I was looking at the Switch strictly as a portable. You guys know how much I love portability, so I don't need to plug this thing to the TV. Eventually I came around and I started using the dock, and I liked it so much, in fact, that I bought a second dock for my living room. I have one in the bedroom and one in the living room. Ironically, I end up not even using the one in the living room all that much because my apartment faces east, and when the sun rises, it's so bright I can't even see my TV. And mornings are the only time I have to play video games. I'm usually busy in the evening, so c'est la vie. But going back to the original question, if you already have a Nintendo Switch, the Switch Lite is just flat out not for you. So I don't think it would be worth it for you. If you don't have one yet, and portability is more important than playing on a big screen, then yes, definitely. One thing that makes it a little bit easier to skip the Switch Lite is the fact that it only comes in 3 colors: yellow, turquoise, and gray. It's kind of boring. I'm not a huge fan. I mean, yellow is my favorite color. This is why my chair is yellow, by the way. Yellow is my favorite color. But I'm not sure if I like it on a console that much. I'd have to like pick one up and see how I feel about it. People have been posting these mock-ups of different versions they could go with, kind of like what they did with the 3DS. Like this one is inspired obviously by the Game Boy. There's one inspired on the Super Nintendo. I'm kind of glad that these things aren't official, because if that Game Boy inspired Nintendo Switch Lite was real, I would break my rule of never pre-ordering anything, and I would buy, oh my god, by now I'd have pre-ordered like 5 of them. But what do you think? Is the Switch Lite something that you're interested in? And I want to know, like, do you have, because there's 4 categories of people, right? Maybe you have a Switch already and you want it. Maybe you have a Switch and because of that you don't want it. Maybe you don't have a Switch and you want the Switch Lite, or you don't have a Switch, you don't want a Switch Lite, and you're holding on to the other rumored Switch model, the Switch Pro, because again, the people who have been leaking these rumors about a Switch Lite, they also talked about a Switch Pro, which would be something more like the PS Pro to the PS4. If these people were right about the Switch Lite, there's a good chance they're right about the Switch Pro as well. So is that what you're holding out for? Let me know in the comments down below. I gotta edit this video real quick because it's midnight here in Calgary. I got a flight to LA. I'm going to VidCon, and my plane leaves in like 6 hours. So holy crap. If you're new to the channel, as always, hit the like, leave a comment. That helps the channel out so much. Tell me where you're watching these videos from. I'm always fascinated to find out where you guys are from. Follow me on social media, both Twitter and Instagram. Very active over there. And that's all the time I have for today. I'm Izzy, and I'm done.